Run your fingers across the plaster wall of a Pompeii tavern, and you might feel it. Shallow grooves cut into the surface, some barely deeper than a fingernail scratch. Charcoal smudges. Hurried letters carved with iron styluses. These are not the carefully chiseled dedicatory inscriptions you'd find on a temple. These are graffiti. The word itself comes from the Italian graffiato, meaning scratched, and in Pompeii, preserved beneath volcanic ash, over 10,000 of these scratchings survive. What's remarkable is this: they give us something official monuments never could. Real voices, unfiltered, unrehearsed. Quick note: this content is educational only, based on archaeological evidence and ancient primary sources. Now, let us examine who wrote these marks and why they matter. Unlike modern graffiti, which is often transgressive and illegal, Roman graffiti was normative civic behavior. It appeared on grand house facades, on temple walls, on public monuments. The reason is simple. In Roman cities, public-facing walls belonged to the civic domain, not to private property. Writing on them was expected, even encouraged. Evidence suggests broader literacy than scholars previously assumed. We find graffiti written by craftsmen, merchants, even slaves. The content varies wildly. Political slogans, advertisements, love notes, insults, literary quotations, obscenities, all scratched into the same surfaces, side by side. Consider this. When we find the opening line of Virgil's Aeneid scratched on a brothel wall, or gladiator barracks, or an ironmonger's shop, what does that tell us? It suggests that even ordinary Romans, tradesmen, soldiers, sex workers, knew their classics, or at least they knew enough to parody them. Here's one example from Pompeii, catalogued as CIL 49131. The inscription reads, Eulalam ego kono non arma virumque. I sing of an owl, not arms, and the man. This is a direct parody of Virgil's famous opening. Arma virumque kono. Arms and the man. I sing. Someone, probably a bored student or a witty merchant, scratched this joke onto a wall. And it survived. 2,000 years later, we can still read it. Most Roman graffiti elsewhere has vanished. Weathering erased it. But Pompeii was different. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius in the year 79 sealed the city beneath ash. The walls remained untouched, and when excavators uncovered them centuries later, the writings were still there. Faint, but legible. Now, let us examine how these inscriptions were actually made. There were two main techniques. The first used charcoal. Charcoal marks are impermanent. Most have faded or vanished entirely. But the second technique, incising or scratching, left permanent grooves. Romans used iron or bronze styluses. These were the same tools they used for writing. On wax tablets, those hinged wooden panels filled with blackened beeswax. You could smooth wax and rewrite it endlessly. But a wall? Once you scratched your thought into drawing plaster, it was permanent. There was no eraser. And yet, people did it constantly. What's remarkable is the spontaneity. Writing on a wall required either wet plaster, which was soft, enough to carve easily, or scraping away dry plaster, which took effort. Either way, it was an immediate, impulsive act. The ancient writer Vitruvius, in his work on architecture, describes how lampblack was produced. Carbon black from burning resin was mixed into melted beeswax for writing tablets. Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, adds detail. The resinous wood was burned in confined chambers to create atramentum, the black substance used for writing. We might imagine the scene. The smell of burning resin producing lampblack, the waxy resistance of a stylus cutting through, blackened beeswax, the scraping sound of iron on wet lime plaster. These weren't professional scribes. These were ordinary people leaving their marks on the world around them. In recent years, technology has revealed inscriptions that were previously invisible. 3D scanning techniques uncovered hundreds of faint graffiti in Pompeii that human eyes had missed. In January of 2026, archaeologists announced new discoveries: gladiator fight scenes, love notes, drawings barely scratched into the surface. The Corpus Inscriptionum Latinarum, a massive catalogue of Latin inscriptions, dedicated its fourth volume entirely to Pompeii. Over 10,000 graffiti entries. Most were originally transcribed by hand in the 1800s, with no photographs, just careful copies. What survived in Pompeii is an accident of geology. Ash sealed the walls instantly. This prevented weathering. Everywhere else in the Roman world, graffiti vanished. Now, let us address a common misconception. The popular image shows ancient Romans as either Stoic, philosophers, or decadent hedonists. But the graffiti suggests something else. People navigating daily life with the same mix of boredom, desire, humor, and urgency that we do. Secundus defecated here. This phrase appears 3 times on one latrine wall. Nearby, in the same house, someone scratched, "Once you are dead, you are nothing." Toilet humor and existential dread side by side. Modern assumptions treat graffiti as vandalism, as countercultural or subversive. But in Roman cities, graffiti was mainstream communication. Political endorsements appeared on house fronts. Advertisements covered tavern walls, price lists, love notes, obscene jokes, philosophical musings, all written openly. Here's what the sources tell us. One graffito reads, "Celadus the Thracian gladiator is the delight of all the girls." Another, written by a woman named Hidone, advertises her bar. "You can get a drink here for only 1 coin. Better wine for 2. Falernian 4. In the 2026 discovery, archaeologists found a love note that reads, "I'm in a hurry. Take care, my Sava. Make sure you love me." The urgency is tangible, the intimacy unmistakable. One of the most striking examples is catalogued as CIL4 5296, a 9-verse love poem, carefully inscribed in neat cursive within decorative wall panel borders. It seems that the writer took time with this one. It wasn't a hurried scratch. It was deliberate. Some scholars suggest this might be a woman-to-woman love poem, though the interpretation remains debated. What's certain is the care taken, the formality. This was meant to last. The vulgarity is real, and we should address it. Honestly, scatological and sexual content was common, but this reflects Roman candor, not degeneracy. Romans wrote about bodily functions and desires without the euphemisms we use. It was part of their linguistic landscape. What's striking is the range, from crude jokes to philosophical reflections, from price lists to declarations of love, all preserved on the same walls. Now, let us reflect on what this means. Of Rome's millions of graffiti, only Pompeii's survive in significant numbers. This is an accident of preservation. We lost the everyday voices from across the empire, erased by weather and time. What remains are these 10,000 inscriptions, fragile scratches in plaster, now being digitized and protected. Gabriel Zuchtriegel, director of the Pompeii Archaeological Park, said that new technology opens rooms of the ancient world that were previously closed to us. 3D imaging reveals faint marks invisible to the naked eye. Each new discovery adds another voice to the chorus. Consider the paradox. The graffiti writers didn't expect immortality. They scratched their thoughts impulsively for immediate audiences. A joke for a passerby, a declaration for a lover, a price list for customers. Yet they achieved immortality accidentally. Official monuments crumble. Imperial inscriptions are defaced or reused. But a lovesick scribble endures. We might ask, what does this tell us about memory and permanence? About what survives and why? The emperor's statue is gone, melted down centuries ago. But the merchant's joke remains, the gladiator fan's declaration, the urgent love note. These voices are faint, shallow as a fingernail's groove, but unmistakably real. Let us examine our own traces. We leave digital marks now, comments, posts, messages. We assume they're ephemeral. Perhaps they are. Or perhaps, like Roman graffiti, some will survive in ways we never intended. The writer who scratched "I sing of an owl," not arms, and the man onto that brothel wall likely forgot about it the next day. The woman who carefully inscribed a 9-verse love poem probably never imagined scholars would debate its meaning 2,000 years later. They wrote because humans write. We leave marks. We scratch our names, our jokes, our fleeting thoughts into whatever surface will hold them. And sometimes, just sometimes, the world preserves what we never meant to keep. The voices remain, faint, shallow as a fingernail's groove, but unmistakably real.